Okay, I'm back. Let's keep going. See if we can make this happen. This is prenatal development part two, and we're going to continue. You're welcome to read through the illicit drugs there that can cause problems. There are also chemicals and pollutants that can cause problems, and you can see that they don't like that I'm trying to show their videos here, but I hope that these work. Those images were valid just in the last year, so hopefully this will work. Mothers who are exposed to pollutants during pregnancy and while breastfeeding showed the most neurological and pathological damage. So a lot of pollutants that come through things like our foods, our groundwater, can cause significant neurological and pathological damage, including men. Like men, studies of men reveal prolonged exposure to radiation, anesthetic gases, and other toxic chemical can damage chromosomes. So think about the sperm that's passed along, increasing likelihood of miscarriage or genetic defects. Environmental toxins can affect the reproductive system of either parents. Both mother and father should limit their exposure to known teratogens. One of these videos was about a chemical called atrazine, which is banned in Europe, which is still used as I believe it's an herbicide used on mainly corn crops. And so there was a researcher that was actually paid by the chemical manufacturers of atrazine to study its effects. And so this guy is a herpetologist and studies frogs and did a study where he could very quickly determine like the biological it's the African bullfrog, and so you can very quickly determine the sex of the frog by the external appearance. And so what he did is he put like 1 part per million of this atrazine in water where the tadpoles were developing. And what would happen is the tadpoles uh, would either be female or the male um, attributes wouldn't kick in. So you had male frogs with ovaries and eggs. And the reason why is atrazine is very chemically similar to estrogen. So like estrogen in plants, that would be a good herbicide because you have to, plants have reproduction too. And so the same type of estrogen type of structure is at play. So um, he actually extended that research into like workers that are working on crops where they spray a lot of atrazine, and you have like double the risk of prostate cancer, very high risk of breast cancer. It is a teratogen, and there is a lot of money involved in the use of chemicals, and so it's still legal in the United States. But I would not be doing my ethical duty if I didn't have you go and look. And the guy that found it said his reputation's been tarnished because they came after him with different things, threatened his family. Um, yeah, it's bad. So pay attention to what goes into your food, what you're taking in your body, particularly if you're going to reproduce. Um, Mother's health is really important. Prenatal vitamins have been shown to help prevent some birth defects. A severe emotional distress has been linked to problems like if mother's really under a lot of stress and her cortisol levels are high, that's impacting growth. It can lead to stunted growth, premature delivery, low birth weight, a lot of different things. Counseling can help. Of course, I don't think we fund that, but counseling can help people develop stress coping. Um, and also know that the primary, like the best period for lowest rates of birth defects is between the ages of 16 and 35 for females. And over the age of 35 is considered like a high risk pregnancy. It's not necessarily high risk, it's just there's an increased risk of birth defects. There's also 3 stages of labor. The first stage is you have contractions and dilation. Second stage is actually the child passing through the birth canal. The third stage is expulsion of the placenta. Right when a baby is born, they perform an APGAR test. It's assessment of heart rate, just basic function, respiration, color, muscle tone. Um, there's also something called the NBAS. It's used to look at neurological functioning. It can be helpful to, look at neurological problems at a very early stage, basically looking at for responsiveness to stimuli. My wife is an occupational therapist, and she absolutely swears by tummy time and needing kids absolutely necessarily needing tummy time as they grow. Maybe not immediately because you're swaddled up and you're, on your back to make sure you're not, where you don't have sudden infant death or suffocation. But as the child grows, the baby is really important for tummy time. And that's like with really close skin to skin contact with both parents. It helps with bonding. Um, here's my here's my oldest son at 1 week old. Man, that's a long time ago. Uh, that's crazy. Can still remember the first time. Um, I ask what you notice about these kittens, and most people say, well, their eyes are closed. And so can kittens see? It's a question when they're first born. And the answer to that is no. There's a researcher that postulated that kittens have what's called a sensitive period in the development of eyesight, where they have to have exposure to light in order for their visual pathways to take root and hold and then to be able to develop the ability to see. And this researcher allowed some kittens to develop normally, and others had really did not allow their eyeballs to experience light. And in every one of those, and this is between, I believe, the seventh and 11th day of development, there's a sensitive period in there for about 4 days or so where light has to hit the retina for the to stimulate development in the optical nerve of the cat. And in those cases, if they didn't have light, they didn't develop sight, they were blind. So there are sensitive periods in development, and we'll talk about those as we go throughout. And Konrad Lorenz is important. I think be maybe the precursor to um, Bowlby and attachment theory. So Bowlby, Konrad Lorenz is famous for his geese and them following him, and after they're born, like geese will start to follow stuff that's in front of them, and they think it's their mom. And so Conrad Lorenz became the mother to all of these little geese because there was a sensitive period in their development, like the neurologically, they needed to follow something at that age, and that's what happened. So please be aware of that idea of a sensitive period as we go through our class early on talking about development because it's an important concept even in humans, particularly in bonding.